right, welcome folks. My name is Jayeshh Raneey. I'm the realtor with Power Real Estate Group, empowered by the Real Brokerage. I'm also a mortgage loan advisor with Nexa Mortgage. Today we have Lalaine Felipe.
Hi, I'm Lalaine Felipe with Power Real Estate Group, and we are powered by Real Brokerage. Thanks for having me.
Excellent,
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yeah, so the topic today is why hire us as a buyer's agent if you're in the market to buy a home. And also we're going to talk about why hire us as a seller's agent when you want to sell your home. I think our main purpose of this is to give an insight as to how different we are from the other agents. What do we do these things differently? And I think our audience can also use this as a guidelines whenever they're interviewing any other agents apart from us when they're buying or selling a home. All right? So let's get right into the questions, Lalaine. So let's talk about buyer's agent. Why should people hire as a buyer's agent? I think the audience want to know, how are we different than others? What do we do things differently? So my first question to you is, what makes you a great advocate for buyers in today's market?
That's a great question. And one of the beautiful things that we believe in is that we have the clients first. Mm-hmm. And you'll hear that a lot, but it really is truly a client's first mindset, where we really put their needs and their goals in the forefront of what we're doing for them. And they are buying the greatest purchase of their life is their home. And their needs have to be on the forefront. Our job isn't to sell the home, right? Mm-hmm. The home is going to sell itself, but we have to get them in front of the right home, and we have to respect their time, absolutely respect their goals. It's really takes a lot of listening and being quiet. Mm-hmm. We're not just the door openers. We want to make sure we're opening the right door for them. And our job is to guide them, and it's to walk them through every step of this home buying journey and the whole process. And one of the things that I've learned and what we really believe in is it's the mission, which is for our clients to find the right home. It's the mission before the commission.
I like that. It's the mission before the commission, putting our clients first, looking at their needs, guiding them and helping them navigate through the home buying process.
Absolutely. It's a difficult process as it is, and it's overwhelming. And when our clients feel like they're going through it alone, it'll make them, it's even more. It's like a wave crashing over and over again. And we are the jetty. I like to think of that, the jetty that holds back the waters for them.
Okay, good. Coming to the second question, how do you ensure buyers don't overpay for the property?
That's a great question. Because we hear about, oh my gosh, they've bid and they've bought over this amount for this home and everything else like that. And really, it boils down to looking at their budget, their financials, because you don't want them to be put in a home where they're overstretched their budget. Their financials are very important. We need to know, what are they pre-approved for? What payments are they comfortable with? Then we're not looking at homes that are out of their range. But also, we also need to do, the CMAs, the comparable market analysis, to make sure, hey, is the home that they're looking for, is it priced correctly or is it overpriced? Is it a good deal? What are the other, factors that go into that? There are agents out there that are like, here's your list, take it, run with it, you're good. And they're like, well, what do we do? And that's not what we do. We really make sure that, we look at the numbers, does it check off, and does it check off their budgetary and financial guidelines? But also, does that home meet the buyer's criteria? Does it check enough boxes for them to even consider that home, right?
Makes sense. Makes sense. So when you say buyer's criteria or the checklist, when do you establish that with the buyers?
We like to establish that in the very initial meeting in our buyer's consultation. That is the most, it's one of the most important things. You have to know what are their needs, what are their wants, what are their deal breakers. It's just as important as how much of a payment is comfortable for you.
Right.
Those are really important, and you have to also consider, like this is going to be, again, it's going to be one of their biggest purchases, and what is their motivation? If they were looking last year and they put it off, so what's changed? Talk to me about that. And it's really, it's more than just a topical conversation with them. It's getting deeper, a little deeper with them, and they like to call it discovery. But the way that we like to think about it is building that relationship and truly understanding, hey, this is what their motivation is and what they really need in a home.
Right. I being a realtor, I remember when I was with buyers showing homes, and every time I showed a home, their checklists, instead of checking off the boxes, they started adding more to the boxes.
Yes.
And the checklist kept on going on. And which is not a good thing, because the more criteria you add to your checklist, you're never going to find the dream home, or it could happen that you're going to go out of the budget. So there is that aspect of matching reality versus the wants, right? Because everybody might want everything in the house: the pool, the study room, the game room, the bonus
theater room.
Exactly. But I think buyers have to take a holistic approach, look at their budget, and look at what their minimum criteria or the deal breakers are, and kind of try to stay within the framework of what you're pre-qualified for, right? Because a dream home, and when you're a first-time home buyer, I know you call it a dream home, but that's never going to be your first home. You're eventually going to move to another home, and then you might buy a bigger home with more amenities and more functionality in that home.
And you really brought up a valid point, because as there are a lot of first-time home buyers, and there are some first-time home buyers that they're just excited to have a home, and they think that it'll be their forever home. However, we know that time changes things, situations change, and maybe that first home is going to be their forever home, and maybe they'll keep it as as a rental property or an investment property as they purchase another home. So situations, time, life moves, life changes, and so does everybody's needs, wants, and their goals. And I'm really glad that you really brought up that point, because yes, there's reality land and fantasy land.
Right.
And we just have to kind of keep the balance between the two, right?
Right. Yeah. My next question dives into, I know today's market is a little different, but I remember those years, couple of years back, it was a very competitive market. There were multiple offers on the same home. So let's assume if you're in that market, which is very competitive, and that home which is in that neighborhood your buyer wants, and it's like the ideal home, it's the most sorted home in that neighborhood, how do you help your buyers in this kind of competitive market to have that winning edge?
Okay, that's a great question. In one of our previous conversations, one of the things that we discussed was luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. And one of the best things that we believe to help our clients is to be prepared. Financially is huge. Having your finances in order, having your credit, knowing your credit score, and also having a pre-approval before having, as you know, aside from having a pre-qualification, a pre-approval is super necessary. It makes your offer stand out and stronger. And also again, kind of going back to what are their priorities.
Right. I would just like to interject, since this also falls in my arena. Pre-qualification means it's an initial assessment we as mortgage brokers will do as to, based on your income, your other debts, what is the amount you're looking for. So that gives the realtor a clear guidelines as to this is the price range they should be looking for a home. Once you have searched a home in that price range, then the next step is to get a pre-approval. A pre-approval is a soft credit pull. Any mortgage lender or mortgage broker will pull that for you and kind of say, okay, based on these certain factors and financial data of a client, they will issue a pre-approval. That means you are pre-approved for an XYZ amount. Go with confidence, shop for a home in that price range.
And I love that you brought that up, because it's almost the green light to say, okay, this is, these are our guidelines, and and this is, where we can, what you can look for, it gives them a really clear expectation, which is such a beautiful thing.
Right.
And
I think another word of caution is, even if you get pre-qualified for a higher amount, I always advise my buyers to go back and have a discussion within the family that what is that amount you're really comfortable with when it comes to in terms of monthly payment. Because don't forget, it's not only a monthly payment which includes principal, interest, it's even your taxes, your insurance, your maintenance costs for a home.
Your homeowners, your homeowners association. There are so many other costs that come with home ownership that, sometimes our buyers they're so happy. They're like, oh my gosh, the mortgage is $3,000. And then, they're like, wait, then there's the insurance. Oh, there's the property taxes. And there's there's homeowners. Oh, there's more than one homeowners association. Just to, we like to make sure that we give them all of the numbers so that they are not shocked or surprised at their payments and other things.
Okay. So how do you craft a winning offer?
How do we craft a winning offer? The way that we craft a winning offer is, one of the things that, when we're looking at homes and we talk to our clients is, if you like the home, write an offer. But if you love it, write your best offer. And part of writing a best offer and strongest offer is to be prepared with your pre-approval, and also say, when we present the offer to the listing agent, here is our pre-approval letter, and also here is our earnest money. That proof of funds, those things sometimes can take you from the bottom of the list all the way to the top, because then the listing agent and as well as sellers know that you are serious and this is what you want. You're very clear. And that gives it to them. And, and also understanding, even let's say if we do write the best and strongest offer, I like to set expectations. They may counter us. They may do these things. What's our wiggle room? And we have to know those parameters for them.
Yeah, also I think in my experience I've seen, if you have less contingency, it's also a stronger offer because from a seller's perspective, there are less obstacles or less impedance to cross through, or less barriers that the buyer is going to cross through to make this closing to be a successful one.
Absolutely, because as sellers, they want to get the best offer and they want to close in the fastest amount of time.
Can you walk us through a home buying process right from your first consultation to the closing? I know we touched on some parts, but for our viewers, if you can just highlight the different steps you go through
Absolutely.
when you first meet the buyers to all the way taking them to the closing.
Absolutely. We like to start with a buyer's consultation, meaning we like to make sure we sit down with the buyers and go through the complete home buying process with them. And one of the things that I'm very, I don't know if the word adamant is is the correct word to use for that, but I really like to make sure that I have my preferred lender with us during that meeting. It is very important. The way that I see it is time is of the essence sometimes. And I could sit there and say, hey, let me put you on a group chat with, our mortgage broker, etc. But why waste that time? I like having, my preferred mortgage advisor with us during the initial consultation, because then if there are any questions, anything that comes up that I don't know about the lending side, etc., they're there. And because again, we walk them through, the different steps. We walk through, what is, BRBC, buyer's representation, broker's commission sheet. What does that entail? What does my commission look like? Also, your RPA, your residential purchase agreement, which, has so many different sections. We go through all of the contracts. We go through all of those things, all of the different sections, as well as talk about contingencies. So literally through every single process, we want to make sure that they understand that when we go into it, that when they do sign the BRBC, that they know what they're signing. When they, submit an offer, this is what we're signing, that there's no confusion. I'm sure questions will come up, but it's good to get those questions out on the table first and get that way they can walk away feeling like, okay, I understand this now. And having a mortgage broker at the meeting there answers their financial question. They tell them, this is what I'm going to need so I can get your pre-approval and we can get this process started. It's not a delay in their process. That's just the initial. That's like, I kind of call that like the dating period. In terms of showing them their homes, we like to maximize their time. We don't believe that we should go see 20 homes and not have anything at the end of the day. What we like to do is, I'd like to present them with a list of homes, go through that with them, and say, okay, let's pick the 5. Let's get on a Zoom. Let's pick 5 or 6 that really meet your criteria. Let me set up the showings for you, and I'll do the research on the property. That way you are informed and we are making use of your time and not driving all over town, seeing 10 properties that at the end of the day don't check your boxes.
Right, because it can get pretty much exhausting, right?
Yeah.
If you go to all 10, 15 properties, I think sometimes it kind of overwhelms the buyer and they don't end up choosing or, selecting any of those properties. So I think that's a great thing where you streamline the process, walk them through Zoom, the different options, the different properties, review the criteria on that call, and kind of say, which are the top 5 properties? Let's focus on those first. Let's see what comes up out of those, whether you like them. Because sometimes when the buyers start seeing homes, I have seen in my experience that their criteria might change and they might say, oops, it looks like 3-bedroom or 2-bedroom, which we were looking for, might not work. We might want to look for another bedroom. And that's when you have to go back to the drawing board, reevaluate the new criteria, see whether it fits in their budget, and not only if it fits in their budget, but it also is available in that area they're looking at. Because sometimes the moment you bump up a bedroom, it can go out of their budget, and then you might have to look for other options like townhomes or condos, or probably move to another area so that it can meet their new criteria.
No, and those are really valid points. I mean, in our experience, when we've had to look for homes and buying them, we come across those. So we can empathize with that feeling because it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And so, on that part, we have to sometimes bring ourselves back and put ourselves in their shoes. And the home buy, when they finally say, we love this home and we want to put in an offer, guess what? There's another process, because then as soon as you submit the offer, the time starts ticking. Okay, so we have deadlines we have to meet, and as realtors, it is our job to make sure that all of the deadlines get met on time, and really on their side, because one of the most important things is when that earnest money deposit that they make for that home that they want, it's our job to protect that, especially during this period, because of if they don't meet a certain contingency deadline or a loan deadline, inspection, etc., they could lose that.
Yeah.
And
you're right about contingencies, because most of the contingencies are there to protect the buyer.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, the buyer is responsible to make sure that they fulfill those contingencies. Like let's take an example, like obtaining insurance. In today's markets, it's a hard thing. It's a very much difficult thing and most challenging thing, getting home insurance at a reasonable cost. If a home buyer is not able to obtain, it can help them to back out of the contract.
Yes.
Which is fair. Another will be home inspection. If certain things came out in the home inspection, that allows the buyer to back out if the seller doesn't agree to fix the issues which were part of that home inspection.
Absolutely.
A third one will be the interest rates changed, and the buyer now cannot afford a home loan at whatever was pre-approved before.
Exactly.
Anything can happen. So these contingencies are to help the buyers protect themselves, but also at the end of the day, the buyer needs to perform them on a timely basis so that they don't risk at losing the earnest money.
Absolutely, and those are all really, really good points. And and as realtors, we do. It is our job to hold their hand and not, we're not talking babysitting, but to really hold their hand and say, I've got you through this, and to make sure that they are protected. End of the day, yeah.
Right. All right. So let's move to another different subject again. But staying on what a buyer agent does to stay updated on the local market trends, because especially right now, if you see, there's so much going on out in the world. The market is shifting rapidly, So how do you stay on top of the financial information, the market information, and how does that help the buyers?
Okay, valid question, because we have information from so many sources, right? One of the main ways that we try to stay on top of the market trends, the rates, and all the external things outside of the news, etc., is I like to call you, because you are my preferred lender, and I say, Jay, what's going on with the feds and what's going on with can you help me understand this? And that's because you are my preferred lender, and I can trust the information you give me, because as a mortgage loan advisor, you get a lot of real-time information. Sometimes I believe almost faster than what maybe we may get from like NAR, the National Association of Realtors, or our local real estate association. So we have to, that has to stay top of mind. Aside from, getting some market data that trickles in towards the end of the month. But, as a trusted source for that information, that's where I absolutely rely on you on. Because that is definitely top of mind for our clients. Yeah, and I do, we do have our meetings at the office where we talk about, this is how many new listings came, this is what was sold, this is what was expired. So we get all that statistical data, from all of that. But sometimes, what I like to do is if I'm in the neighborhood and driving around, I like to see, hey, how many for sale signs are up? How many are not? Oh, look at, and you can kind of feel the stability and the movement in the area just sometimes by driving.
Right. And I think even MLS is a great source of data. If you're helping a buyer in a particular county or a particular city, you go into MLS and you will kind of see the listings, how many days it's sitting on market, how many of them are going back and forth, whether it goes from active to, pending and pending to back on market, because you see a trend that some transactions are falling, some listings are expired without being sold. So I think MLS is also a great way for us to get some insight.
Yeah.
And then there are different websites which do share the trends by state, by counties, because every county is different, right?
Yes, every county is different, every state is different, and our PR has that. We get that from our MLS, and you can kind of see the trend. And yes, MLS absolutely does give us that. They'll depending on how the website is set up, you could see the bottom. They'll give you all the new listings. This is what expired. They give you the numbers right there, so it'll give you definitely a good feel.
All right, so I think the next question is really going to be important for our viewers. What are some of the common mistakes you help your buyers, clients will avoid?
During this process, don't open up a new credit card. Don't do it. Don't go out and buy a new car either. And also, don't quit your job. Don't do those things. There are different pitfalls there. Your credit report, etc., really only lasts for 3 months, and then they have to rerun it. And during this home buying process as well, when they see that, they bought a new car, they opened up a new credit line, and they just quit their job to start a new one.
As lenders, we want to see that anybody who's applying for a mortgage has a steady employment for the last 2 years.
Yep.
Or if not, is at least for 1 year, they're being steadily in that job. So that's why it's important that you don't quit your job before you start the home buying process. I will recommend that you wait, get through the whole home buying process, and then if possible, change your job after you have acquired the home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How do you help home buyers balance emotion and logic during a home search?
Well, it all really, what I really like to try to do is I like to try to keep our clients grounded. Bring them back to, I understand that you really love this home. And as a realtor, it's hard to sit there and say, hey, this is out of your budget. Mm-hmm. This is not what we discussed. But at the end of the day, what I like to do is bring them back to the reality of it. This is great. However, in terms of what we're looking at, this is how it's going to change your payment on all of these other things. It all boils back down to the numbers. And if that's something, if they really love it, and I'll just say this, and let's just say, hey, we have room in our budget, I'm willing to do this, okay, I'll go there. At the end of the day, it's going to be, is their offer going to be strong enough for them to get that emotional home that they want? Or or their offer going to be stronger in the home that really meets their needs? And again, it becomes wants, needs, and bringing them back to that reality and their numbers.
Awesome. All right, with that, it ends our series on why you should hire us as a buyer's agent. All right, so this is our next series on the seller side. So we're going to talk about why should someone hire you as a seller's agent if they're looking to sell a house in this market?
I am very transparent. People could say that, but I am very transparent about that. I am also a person that communicates with my sellers, and I update them when I have open houses, when I have showings, whatever it is that they need to know, because time is of the essence for them. I am very passionate about what I do, and that comes out in ways that I not just update them on their properties, but I manage their expectations. And my bottom line with them, and I'm part of my transparency is telling them my bottom line with you is to get you the top dollar in the fastest time and most efficiently as possible to sell your home. Because this is very emotional to sell your home. They have put time, memories, blood, sweat, tears into this home that they've had maybe for a long time. Maybe this is the only home that they've ever sold, and they have to uproot their life and move it. And I completely get that. I'm here to, again, wrangle that and hold that, but make sure that everything is taken care of for them and that they are at peace and ready to move on.
Okay, good. Let's come to the next most important question is the list price. I've always seen in the market is dictating, for example, $1 million, and the buyer is expecting 1.2 million. So how do you determine the best list price for that home?
It comes down to doing your homework. You have to do your due diligence. We have to do our CMAs, your comparative market analysis. You have to look at the reality of, what's sold, what is expired, what has closed, how long are these homes sitting on the market? And this is where our reality check comes in. And I understand sellers are going to say, my home is worth 1.5, but numbers don't lie. And it is our job and our duty to say, I understand that, but let me just show you why this is where the best price is for your home.
Yeah, I think the sellers need to understand what CMA is, which we call a comparative market analysis, is pulling homes of similar characteristics within a half a mile radius, and then you do those tweaks and a little bit of adjustments based on the subject property having those additional features like pool or an upgraded kitchen, things like that, and that's how we really come with an actual selling price for the home.
Absolutely.
Can you walk us through your process for preparing a home when you're ready to go on the market?
When we're ready to go on the market, outside of, the photography and the marketing of it, I'd like to prepare my sellers and, especially when we're getting ready to go to open house and stage, I ask them to please declutter their home as best as possible. Start the declutter process. And also take the personal things out of the home as well. Personal pictures off of the walls, etc. Because the goal is to have buyers to come into their home so that they can get the feeling of, what would it be like if this were my home? And it's hard to have buyers have that feeling when they see, oh, there's a picture of the husband and wife or the family, because it's not them. So you want to give them that sense. But, that's where we start. And I think that's usually what's a difficult place, because then they start to sense that this is really happening, but we have to start somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to add to that is also like, medications, prescription medications need to be stacked away. If you have firearms, they need to be locked away. Anything which is of high value also needs to be put away from a security perspective, other than staging a home.
Oh, and the electronics.
Yeah.
Those are absolutely some of the things as well. We like to make sure to let our clients know, hey, lock all your valuables away, or get it out of the house if that's possible for you to do, just to protect them and their property and their things.
Absolutely. What is your marketing strategy to attract qualified buyers when you get your listing active on the market?
We work with a team of, oh my goodness, almost 300 agents. And not only what we do is we kind of put the word out. This is our listing. And within those 300 agents, there's buyers. They have clients as well that are looking for maybe that specific property. That's one way. We do social media. We advertise on Instagram, Facebook, Zillow. We are a Zillow Premier team, which is huge. And we showcase their home on Zillow.com. Another thing that we have is we have a database of hundreds and thousands of buyers. And we send out marketing emails, postcards, etc. We also like to go out and door knock, as well as make phone calls to, buyers, renters that we know are in the area that could prospectively want to buy this home. So, we have technological ways that we do it. We have our in-house. We have Zillow, which we partner with as well. And then we have the old-fashioned ways of actually going to door knock and saying, hey, this is coming on the market. We'd love for you to come to the open house. As well as, we do hold open houses. We like to, when we list a property, we like to have the first 2 or 3 open houses. But what's beautiful about working with such a big team of agents is they're so helpful to say, hey, you know what? If, let's say, I can't do an open house, we have them come and they'll do the open house for us. They'll gather the feedback from the buyers and the traffic that come in, and we could share that with the sellers. So, it's very much a constant, marketing effort until we get that home sold.
Great. Oh, I love that. So tell me, what kind of professional photography or videos or anything else like staging goes in preparing the house for getting it active on the market?
Absolutely. One of the first things that we do is definitely photography and also videos. And, again, working with Zillow, they have a program called Showcase where they actually do come out, they take pictures, they do a, virtual staging, and some of the pictures that are shown on the site, as well as drone and videos footage. We like to do that, as well as in person. When if let's say that they don't want to go a digital staging, we do recommend staging. That way they could see, like, what would my bedroom furniture look like in this house, or what would my living room couch look like, etc. So absolutely, you have virtual staging, you have physical staging, we have photography, video, drones, that all go into all of this.
Okay. What's your strategy if the listing doesn't sell right away? Let's say we're sitting in the market for 30 days and we have not had an offer, or the traffic is less during the open houses.
That's a really good question, and that has been I'll be honest with you, that's not one of my favorite conversations to have with a seller. And at that point, we would have to reevaluate our plan. And it may, let's look at our pricing again. Did the market shift when we priced it 30 days ago, and how does it look now? What has happened? We have to see what has happened. And I'll be honest with you, I've had it where my sellers are stuck on a certain price, even if I recommend a different one, and I'm gonna have to go with what they have. But let's say in that situation, they want this higher price, but the market is dictating, let's say, a price that's 100,000 less. Then we have to say, okay, we talked about, you want this price, but I'm recommending this. Now it's come to the point where we do have to come down to this price. It is a hard decision to make, but then also, what I like to do with them in our updates is say, hey, this is the feedback that I've been getting from some of the buyers that have been coming through. They don't like this, or this is happening, or the roof. I think that kind of feedback from the buyers that come in for the open houses or the private showings, etc., those are all valid things, and you got to bring those to the table to make some decisions.
I think another thing I've seen is, while your listing is active, another home with similar characteristics in the same neighborhood comes on the market, and it is priced lower than the subject property, and then that kind of drives the traffic to the other house. And then the prospective buyers who are looking at your house, now they expect the same kind of price reduction and to match up to the selling price of that other home. That's one of the ways we have seen that happen.
Exactly, and so it's almost like your head is bubbling, going, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And we, again, at the end of the day, buyers are going to dictate the market. And we can just do our best and educate our clients and give them, and manage their expectations.
Okay. All right, let's talk about multiple offers. I mean, this is a tricky one. Sometimes you'll have 10, 20, a dozen multiple offers on a home.
Okay.
In your experience, how do you guide the clients in those scenarios? Because always I've seen the highest offer is not the best offer. So it's very tricky when you get these different offers. How do you help client make a decision? How do you help them navigate through this?
First of all, people go, oh my gosh, did you even present my offer and all that? Yes. We have to present all the offers to the seller. Okay? End of the day. We look at, yes, the pre-approvals. We look at, do they have proof of funds? What are the contingencies? Then, okay, and so you have your checkbox. And what are the contingencies? And then, we go, okay, so let's say we have all of these. Then you do have to make, you almost have to rank them. This is the strongest, would be the second, etc. Or who's asking for more concessions? Who's not asking for any concessions? There's a lot of different things that are going to go into these offers that they would be presented with.
Right.
And at the really end of the day, it is, what is the strongest and best offer that has the least contingencies, the least concessions? It's almost like what's going to be not the biggest headache.
Right. All right. I think let's get to the last question. I think this is which the audience I think always looks forward to is, what are some of the common mistakes sellers make, and how do you help them avoid? We talked on the buyer side, what are some of the mistakes you should not do when you start the home buying process? Mm-hmm. I think you must have experienced some of these mistakes sellers make.
Yeah. Our sellers are special people. There's a lot of emotion, lots of emotion that goes into selling their home. And the reality checker that I am, one of the biggest mistakes, and one of the things that I talk with them about, is overpricing their home. I have to understand their motivation for selling. That's important. I have to understand their timeline. Another thing, how fast do you want to move on this? How much do you want to net? How much do you need to net from this sale? Okay, time is money. And the biggest mistake that I've seen my sellers do is overprice their home. Really, at the end of the day, that's what I see. Because again, when you overprice your home, what happens is, if you have to reduce it, let me put it this way. If you see something that is at $500 and then all of a sudden you see it go on sale 2 weeks later, what do you think? What's the first thing in your mind?
Buyers are always they're going to do comparison shopping. It's similar to when you're buying a car.
Exactly.
They're always going to go to pivot towards the lower priced home, which has similar characteristics.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And I think presentation in a home is also important. Some sellers are resistant to remove their personal belongings or declutter the home, and they don't understand the significance of the buyer needs to walk into that house, and the buyer needs to see it from their perspective. How will this home suit their needs? They need to start seeing them and imagining themselves living in it. So I think staging, decluttering, these are very important things. Sometimes sellers don't want to do it. And I think that's also one of the top 5 mistakes, I think, in my experience, I can highlight.
I absolutely agree with you on that. Again, like the overpricing, not giving your home a curb appeal or fixing. You have to give your home that you love so much that you want to sell. You have to give it a winning chance, and those are really some important things.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point about curb appeal, where I think it's important for the sellers to walk in that home and proactively look at issues, things need to be fixed, and fix them proactively.
Yes.
So that they don't stand out as a sore thumb when the buyer is seeing it, and right away automatically the buyer is going to think, I'm going to get concession for this. But that little thing might only be a couple of $100, which will cost you to fix it. So go ahead, fix everything. If you need a fresh coat of paint, just do it. I think all that presentation of the home matters. I think if the sellers are not ready to invest and put the effort and money, they will be leaving a lot of dollars on the table.
You're absolutely right, because if a small coat of paint can net you a lot more in the end.